Hello everybody, E here. Welcome back to another book review. Today we're talking about a book that I don't know how to review. I'm just going to tell you my thoughts, and maybe some of y'all can explain to me in the comments section what I might have missed or whatever. Also, I'm doing daily shorts for the time being. As Tony and them and all of you guys know, I'm inconsistent. I'm not dependable, so don't expect them forever. But while I have the energy to do, I'm going to give you guys something to watch. So today's review is of the New York Trilogy by Paul Auster. This is an author that has been on my radar for quite a while. I really enjoy literary fiction. I'm starting to really enjoy literary crime fiction, and this was high at the top of the list. If you saw my last review for The Trees by Percival Everett, these were on the same list. So I'm going down a list. Also, I'm trying to read everything, every finalist and winner of the National Book Award, going all the way back to 1936, I believe, with Rachel Field's Time Out of Mind. She won that one. Anyway, so I'm doing all that stuff until I can't do anymore, okay? I'm also trying to read everything I have collected around here. I have over 6,000 books in ebook and, and physical copies, because this is the only part of my library. You can see the other part of my library in the shorts that I'm doing. But short content is for a different type of person, I believe. If you're here for the long-term stuff, the long-form stuff, it's not going anywhere. So this is 3 novellas that make up one book. Why I say that is because they're very loosely connected until you get to the last one and you find out that if you haven't been paying attention, you're kind of lost. And I wasn't expecting this because it was called literary crime fiction. I was expecting some kind of crime. I'm going to walk you through what happens in each book without spoilers. I read another review that was very popular on Goodreads, and it seemed like he went well into spoilers without any spoiler. He went well into spoilers without meaning to, but nobody complained about it, so I'm hoping these things aren't spoilers. If you want to go into this book blind, I highly recommend it, as long as you know that you need to put your thinking cap on. I was not prepared for it, so I'm sure I missed something, and I won't be rereading it again. I won't be reading it again. The main reason I won't be reading it again is because Paul Auster is an author. This is an anomaly. This is something I've only come across 2 or 3 times with Nick Cutter and a couple other people. This author is great only the first time you read him. Once you find out all of his tricks and style quirks and all that stuff, you're probably never going to want... Well, I never want to read him again because he is what I call a puzzle author. And I don't like puzzle authors. I don't like authors that make you take notes to figure out what they're talking about. Also, the puzzle in the first book is literally a walking path. And if you're not familiar with that area, because I went on Google Maps to try to trace it out, and it did not say... I think it's changed, because this came out in 76, I believe. I'm going to put this down now, because my wrist is starting to hurt. I got soft hands and weak wrists. Sorry. Anyways, so... The New York Trilogy is 3 novellas. You have The City of Glass, you have Ghosts, and then you have The Locked Room. In City of Glass, you have this is another thing that Paul Auster does that I did not know. He's very meta. He writes himself into his own books, but he's not the hero like Richard Chismar did with his series. He's not the hero. It's not that kind of silly metaverse kind of thing. It's more along the lines of people are looking for him and they can't find him. So Quinn is an author who gets a phone call late at night for a person looking for Paul Auster, the detective, not the writer, the detective. He's like brushes her off, whatever. Time goes by. He ends up working with the lady. He ends up finding out that the lady is married to a man who has a problem with speech. Getting certain things out, and you come to find out that he was abused by his father, and that his father is trying to recreate the Tower of Babel. If you don't know what the Tower of Babel is, good. I mean, it's basically is like God created one language for us all, and then the Tower of Babel, and that's why we all speak different languages. We speak different languages because we come from different tribes. That's the only reason why. Anyways, so don't get me wrong, these books are fun. they're fun to read. The dialogue is very stilted, but in a dry comedy way. So if you're a fan of like Monty Python, then definitely check this out, because that's what the comedy is like here. Very, very dry, no laughter, no giggling, none of that stuff. But it can make you holler with laughter if you get the joke. So City of Glass, the first one ended, and I'm like, okay, I can dig it. I mean, it's nothing that I would want. Then I would want to read again, but at the same time, I realized at the end that he had put a puzzle in there. And early in the book, there's one person is following another person, and the person who's following realizes that the person is walking a path that spells out a word that he actually reveals in the book. Okay? That's in the book. Later on, you have a very long sections, like 3 pages long, of just walking directions of this character making turns, random turns, whatnot. I'm like, okay, I'm not about to read this, so I just skimmed all over it, because I kind of figured that's what he was doing. And then by the end, Auster literally tells you maybe there's some hidden secrets in this story. Okay, so not very clever to spell it out like that, but yeah. So I go to look it up. I'm like, okay, let me. I couldn't figure out on Google Maps what it was, so I looked it up, and that route does not spell that word, and I'm thinking that's because New York has changed so much. So that's a problem with the first one. Literally, you cannot solve the puzzle nowadays because it's not. I guess you could look up a map from 1976. You could go do that. So if you want to do that, go do that. Next thing is Ghosts. Ghosts starts out very, I don't want to say cutesy, but all of the characters have color names. Mr. Black, Mr. White, and it's not in a Reservoir Dogs kind of way. It's literally, that's their names. Mr. Blue, Mr. White, that kind of stuff. So one person hires another person to stalk another person, follow another person around. So you're getting the gist here. We got PIs, we got detectives, we got that kind of thing. We got detecting going on, but no one is actually a detective. So that one goes on, and the ending was quite shocking to me. Not in like a visceral way, but I wasn't expecting it. You come to find out that the whole time something else is going on, and I was like, oh, that's a pretty neat twist. But once again, I would not read it again. Then we come to the last book, which is my favorite of the entire series, The Locked Room. You have a person who is brought in by his best friend from childhood, his wife. Okay, so his best friend from childhood grew up and married a woman. This woman contacts the friend and says, my husband has disappeared and he has made you the executor of his estate, which is 3 novels, 2 short, 1 long, a book of poems, a bunch of short stories, that kind of thing. And it is up to the main character, the narrator, the unnamed narrator, so I'm guessing it's supposed to be Paul Auster again. I need to go back real quick, but let me finish my thought before I forget this. So he is not hired, but he's the executor, so he has to go get this book published. And then there's some twists and turns along the way. By the end of the story, I don't know what was supposed to mean what, because Peter Stillman from the first book makes an appearance in here, but it's more along the lines of him bumping into him out in public. And I didn't know which Peter Stillman it was. You have to read the first one, City of Glass, to understand what I'm talking about. I don't know which one it was. So is this before or after certain... I don't know, and that's when I really got lost, and I was like, I am not about to read this book again. Now, let me backtrack to City of Glass. The lady who calls Quinn asks for Paul Auster. That's the author of this book. But he's supposed to be a detective in this world or something. You never do get to you never get to meet the Paul Auster that's a detective, but there is another Paul Auster that you get to meet in the story. And he comes off as kind of a jerk, which I find really cool. If you're going to write yourself into a book, let it be self-deprecating, let it be goofy, let it be fun. And that's what it was here. But here's my critique. Here's why I'm not going to read him. I'm not going to call him pretentious, because it seems like everybody's calling this man pretentious. He's obviously brilliant. He's a great writer, or was. I'm not sure if he's passed on or not. Obviously, he's a great writer. I don't know why pretentious is being thrown around, because it's obvious from the jump that you're not really supposed to catch everything. And this is what I mean by this. This book is an experience. You can't re-experience an experience. You can only have it one time. Just like you can never go home kind of thing. You can never return to that place again. And I know if I were to dig through this to try and solve all the puzzles, that I would take something away from it. Now I want to talk about a blurb that's on the back of it, because I found it very interesting. I don't read blurbs or descriptions or anything most of the time. About 90% of the time, that's an arbitrary number, but, about 90% of the time, I don't, unless, someone's like, you really need to read this, and nothing else grabs me about the book, like the cover and whatnot, I'll read the description. Or if I'm doing a book haul, I tend to read the descriptions, but I don't read them for the ones that I really want to read. Enough rambling on that. Let me read this to you. This is from The Independent, the newspaper. Okay? Auster's strength is that he simply rubs stories together like pebbles. They clatter, spark, and echo, but yield nothing so easy to extract as, quote-unquote, there's quotation marks, as meaning. Paul Auster is on his way to becoming a considerable name. Okay, I get what they're saying. You're not supposed to be finding the meaning here. You're supposed to be enjoying the book as it happens. Like Stephen King famously said, it's about the journey, not the destination. So if you are hip to that, if you really, I just said, are you hip to that? What is this, 1960s? If you are cool with reading 300 pages of a book and not having any answers, or maybe only the answers that you come up with to put it together, this is the golden suitcase from, well, it's Golden Light, this Pulp Fiction. That's the golden suit, the gold coming, the gold shining out of the suitcase. This is the rope burn on Brad Pitt's neck in Inglourious Bastards. If you are fine without knowing those, they're full stories, beginning, middle, and end. But if you are fine with having huge, open-ended things like the gold light coming from the suitcase, the rope burn on Brad Pitt's neck, if you are fine with that, you're going to love this. And I loved it, but I will never read another Paul Auster because I don't like puzzles. If I want to solve a puzzle, I get a cryptogram, I'll get, a word search, something like that, and that's what I'll do. But here, all I want to do is read. And it scratched that itch. But there are some things that I will never figure out, and I also won't be reading any more from Auster because I didn't gel with his style too much, but I did gel with his stories. There's one other one called 4321 that also about a Paul Auster, or many versions of Paul Auster, which I find interesting, but it's also a huge, thick tome of a book, and I got plenty of books to keep me satisfied. But if you read the New York Trilogy or anything else by Paul Auster, let me know down there in the doobly-doo. But until next time, I have been E, you've been you. This has been another book review. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye! Oh, here at the end, there seems to be a schedule thing going on now. Every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday for as long as I can keep it up. And the shorts are every day for right now. So Tony and them, all you people that get upset when I disappear, I'm gonna disappear again. It's just gonna happen. But I'll be back eventually, unless I'm no longer here to come back. Bye.